evidence, like some video or picture evidence of some skinwalkers, because some of the stuff out there is not tight.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think I wrote this down in the notes, but one of the things that people say is people will actively go out there and try and track skinwalkers, and 99% of the time they either are led to a dead end or led back to their own home, and they blame that on the skinwalker tricking them, as opposed to them getting lost and not finding anything. Just saying. So, specifically, animals associated with witchcraft like this usually include the tricksters such as the coyote, but can include other creatures, usually those associated with death or bad omens. They might also possess living animals or people and walk around in their bodies by locking eyes with them. Skinwalkers may be male or female, but they are typically male. Skinwalker stories told among Navajo children may be complete with life and death struggles and the typical kind of fairy tale that you would tell children to not have them go out at night or be home by a certain time type deal. Or they usually end with the Navajo being killed or the kid being kidnapped, or it's a stalemate where the skinwalker will just be scared away. Very rarely, if ever, do the stories have anything to do with the Navajo winning the fight or coming out victorious at the end of an encounter with a skinwalker. That usually does not happen. The best that usually happens in any of the stories is that the skinwalker is spooked off for one reason or another. Let's see. Non-native interpretations of skinwalker stories typically take the form of partial encounter stories on the road, which is the thing I was describing in the beginning, where the person is temporarily vulnerable but then escapes from the skinwalker in a non-traditional way, seen in Navajo stories that take place away from home. Sometimes Navajo children take Euro-derived folk stories and substitute generic killers like the Hook, which is a killer with a hook for a hand from the 50s in England, and then they'll replace that.
Was on the car.
And they'll replace that killer with a skinwalker to replace their stories. So, like Jesse was saying earlier, you can see already that a lot of their lore and a lot of their stories are muddled with other stories around the world.
Yeah, it's definitely like a boogeyman, like a cultural boogeyman.
Yeah.
But there also may be something going on out there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that interested me, I think, when I was just researching is just like the countless stories that are still popping up about skinwalkers and encounters with them in New Mexico and all this other stuff. And like, every time you hear somebody tell one of these stories, they're always fucking horrifying. Like they're never, like, ghost stories are scary. Skinwalker stories are like body horror.
Yeah, I'm not used to the imagery of an animal, like seeing an animal and then watching it get up and run away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To like people who know about this are like, you know, that's like the trope.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think about that or like associate that with horror in my mind normally. And like imagining that happening like scares the shit out of me.
And a ton of the art out there and the drawings of what people saw are horrific. Like the person underneath this animal skin, the animal skin is like dripping with blood, and it has like excessive limbs that are long and scraggly, and they look terrifying. They're awful looking. But like I said earlier, like it feels like it's immediately always muddled with other stories, and a lot of things like this lose a lot of their credibility once you start mixing in folklore of other things and just replacing the monster of that particular story with a skinwalker and being like, oh, it was a skinwalker, when in the original story it was a hook-handed killer. So
yeah.
The cool thing though is, and what we're gonna get into right now, because I went diving for, like, where did skinwalkers, like, where did this originate? And because the Navajo are, or at least they were and maybe still are, super secretive, it's really hard to figure out where it all started and why this is beginning. And it might even just be impossible, because I'm sure the story of skinwalkers has been around for a very, very long time before we even started colonizing.
Yeah, I don't know how much recording of their folklore they do traditionally.
There are stories of the Navajo people before colonization actually working with skinwalkers occasionally, but it always ends up bad and for them, and that's kind of how it seemed that the skinwalkers became almost like this. They would use like the skinwalkers to spy on colonists because they could be animals, and so they were almost like an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation for a while, but eventually the skinwalkers just became an enemy of both. So there was a point in time, there are stories that float around of the Navajo working with them for a little bit, but the stories are rare and they're deeply buried in the recesses of horrifying websites that hurt your eyes to see. But they're out there.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Shout outs to yellow text, bro.
Yellow text on black backgrounds that twinkle, you know, that good stuff. It's really, really good. But the cool part about the cool part about Skinwalkers, and the part that I really fucking enjoyed, was just how you become one, their weaknesses, their powers, and what they can do. And this is what we're going to get into now. So the Aunt Genie, which is the practitioners of the particular type of witchery, are people who receive their supernatural power by breaking a cultural taboo, performing witchery on another innocent person. Upon the initiation of the Aunt Genie, a person is said to gain the power to become a Yin Al Dushi, which is what we talked about before with he who goes on all fours. This is done via a song and dance ceremony used to curse instead of healing, which is how the healers and the spiritual leaders of the Navajo usually did it. It's kind of like the negative version of that song and dance. It's like going prestige classes I wrote down here. It's like going prestige class in an MMO or something, or in a video game or D&D. And then after that's performed, you are now a Yi Naldushi. Naldelushi. But before that can take place, what the person has to do in order for you to become one of these, in order for you to go through this ceremony, this curse ceremony where others curse you and make you you become the Skinwalker, you actually have to kill somebody, or do something horrible. Usually that.
So this is what makes them the villain.
Correct.
Other than a normal shamanistic character who would commune with nature and gain like the power to become a wolf or something. This is you kill someone to gain these powers, thus you're the bad.
So you actually
your class quests are all.
Yeah, so you actually have, so basically, before we get into like the specifics, although men and women can become one of these, like I said, usually it's men who do it, and it's believed that only women who can bear no children or childless women are the ones that can become witches. Otherwise, for some reason, they can't become one, and the details are kind of vague and not really there.
I will say, after a cursory look at Google for Skinwalkers, most of the illustrations and or Dark Knight photos were of what appeared to be guys.
Yep.
However, I did see several like very sexy wolf chicks.
Of course.
So, you know,
You're more receptive now.
I'm in. I feel like if I ran across a sexy wolven female in the forest, I'd be like, you know what? Hey,
Well, it's like,
I
you're
believe.
entering an area of life where you're outnumbered men to women like 30-1. So for every sexy wolf woman, there's like 30 horrific coyote men around.
Yeah, but you're implying that a sexy wolf woman wants to be with the sexy wolf man when really she could be with me.
But she's super evil.
down with
She's
that
super
shit.
evil.
Yeah, but I'll overlook that.
That's nice. That's good.
Does that make you a furry?
I mean, for this scenario, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
She has the power to become a wolf woman.
Right.
Hell yeah, I'm in.
So, in that culture, within Skinwalker culture, there's actually ranks as well. And there is the highest possible rank is called the Kliziati, which means pure evil. In order to become pure evil, in order to achieve this highest rank in Skinwalker culture, or witch culture, you get a multiple choice of things you can do to become that evil. It's great.
all really cool things.
Yeah, so you can kill a close blood relative.
Tight.
You can just bang one of your family in incest.
Very cool.
Right? Or you could just bang a corpse.
What?
You could bang a corpse. Necrophilia.
Someone take all this out of context.
Right.
Like, Alex is going, very cool.
Then you can bang a corpse. Necrophilia. That's another way you can achieve this highest rank.
Nice. Dude,
You can do all three. Kill a close blood relative, then fuck your close blood relative's corpse.
yeah, there you go. That's 3 in a row.
Then you get all of it. I mean, then you would have.
Does that make you more evil than the most evil
I
person?
know. I'm curious what that would that give
Is
you.
that like the S rank of
No,
being
you just get a cool
Skinwalker?
mount. You just get a cool mount and a alternate color for your weapon.
Awesome.
but it's
Oh,
cool,
you get a
though.
new artifact. Oh, yeah.
So actually, when you complete one or more of these acts, it's actually said to destroy your inner humanity completely, allowing you to become fully initiated in the way of witchery. So these are the acts that you would do to just become as evil as possible, and it's like selling your soul for power, more or less. So I can imagine it's like, well, I'd like to keep part of my soul, but I'm low-ranking Skinwalker. I'll just blow some corpse dust on somebody that's not a close blood relative. Maybe it's a neighbor I hate a lot. and he's kind of a dick, and he keeps like pissing in my farmland in the middle of the night because he's trashed. So if I just blow some corpse dust in Farmer John's face, he'll die, my life will be better, and I can turn into an animal. I won't be fully evil, I'll still have some of my soul, but I'll get some sweet powers. I'd do it.
I get it. I get why somebody would do
Right,
it.
that's what I'm saying. So, skinwalkers specifically are usually seen as coyotes, wolves, fox, eagles, the usual. But it's also said that they actually can take the form of any animal they choose, a decision based on what abilities they need. So this is where like the druid aspect that I see in like D&D or video games come in. They can turn into what, if they need an ability, they can just turn into that animal, no problem. They need to fly, turn into a bird. They need to run really fast, turn into a wolf or a cat of some sort, a coyote. Anything that they need to do, they have the ability to just do. And it has, there's no real specific rules. In fact, some Navajos actually believe that skinwalkers have the ability to steal the face of a person and just be that person. So then my question is, does that mean maybe Trump is just a skinwalker?
It's possible.
Like a
possible.
really bad one who has like,
Yeah.
that's why his face is so orange and just doesn't look natural. Cause he didn't.
Yeah, he locked eyes with some guy ages
That's what
ago.
it was. Trump locked eyes with a skinwalker years ago, and that skinwalker has been puppeting that body around way too long. Way longer than he should. That's great. So yeah, they can steal faces possibly, which is just a weird power. Other abilities that they are said to possibly have. If you ever lock eyes with a skinwalker, they can absorb themselves into your body. They can read your mind. They can freeze you up with fear to the point where you can no longer move, scream, or do anything.
That's the type of shit that always freaks me out.
Right, and
It's like night terrors.
and when they get, and the reason they do this also, Jesse, when you were asking, is because they could kill you, but if they scare you, they feed off of that energy. That's what the skinwalkers feed off of, your fear and your terror. So outside of, this trickster coyote god, they are also literally sustaining themselves off of your fear. But I guess, I don't know if that limits the horror of a skinwalker. If I know that they're just there to scare the shit out of me, just to feed off of my fear, it means they're probably not gonna kill me.
Let me ask you this: like, have you ever even just been walking through the woods and just seen like a deer,
Yes.
like at night?
Yes, I used to live in an area where there was a ton of deer, and their glowing eyes are fucking scary as shit.
Like that shit is just scary already. Yeah.
But that's like built into your human DNA.
Yes.
Like that aspect of us is what we 4,000 years ago, longer than that, 1,000,000 years ago, we were like ape men. Like it's what kept our asses alive.
Right, but that's exactly what I mean. Like now, imagine if it was a skinwalker, and like my life doesn't need to be necessarily in danger for me to like literally shit myself and be ruined forever by the encounter.
Right, but I think that the legend, the myth, is feeding off of that natural, inherent human emotion of, like, I'm alone at night, I am ultra aware, hyper aware that anything could come get me, I'm alone, and so it feeds off of that as well. And I just, as much as I want to truly, even if you're saying, like, back in colonial times, these skinwalkers allied with the native people to spy on the colonists.
Right.
And they get their whole thing, they get off on fear. Why hasn't been like the Great Skinwalker War? Where are the skinwalkers to have? I just don't.
It's not their style. It's not their style.
Their style then makes no sense.
Well, they also have weaknesses.
Yes, which we're gonna get into. Their weaknesses are fucking metal. I love their weaknesses so much because it's so gamey. It's so video gamey, and it's probably stupid to say it's video gamey because I'm sure video games obviously rip from lore, not the other way around. But as somebody who was introduced to a lot of this lore first from like books and video games and D&D, I love it. It's just wild. It's super cool. So just a little bit more about what skinwalkers look like. In human form, they're very hairy. They usually wear the pelts that...
Hilarious.
Yeah, of course. They usually wear the pelts that they were wearing during their initiation, which is the only thing they were wearing during initiation. Any wounds that they receive in human or animal form translate back and forth. So there's no like, I gash you in the chest, but if you turn into a coyote, that gash is now gone. No, it translates. You can't like heal yourself like that.
What if I snap your antler off?
Yeah, good question. What happened? I assume the antler would stay missing in animal form, but what kind of wound would that be in human form?
Just like a really weird bald patch on the top of your head.
Just your hair is missing.
But that's like
Yeah.
it's not hair though. There's a lot of questions here that are unanswerable because
We can't answer 'em, 'cause we don't.
mythology wise, no one cares. But like if this was a real thing, I just okay. I'm gonna hands off for the
But we're
moment.
almost done getting through like the basics of skinwalkers, because again, if we really wanted to, we could probably spend an entire 2 episodes going through like the history and like. But
Yeah, it takes a minute. It takes a minute to like understand exactly what they are, but the real shit of this comes from the stories.
right, and I think we'll probably hit more of that when we eventually hit Skinwalker Ranch, because I think Skinwalker Ranch is going to be a doozy of an episode.
Yeah.
And like I said, it might even be like a 2-parter at that point. We'll see. However, Skinwalkers are not, they're not invulnerable. They have weaknesses. And they're very, like, cliche weaknesses. So one of the weaknesses, before we get to their deaths, is straight from vampire lore. They cannot enter the home of somebody else unless they are invited in. So skinwalkers cannot cross the threshold of a home. But therefore, they've actually developed the ability, or always had the ability, one way or the other, to make any sound they wish. From animal forms to crying babies sometimes, just to draw the person out of the home to get them to step away from the safety of their home. There's actually a story that I read of a man who lived on a farm, and he heard all of his sheep going crazy. So he stepped outside, and what he saw was all of his sheep in the corner of a pen, shivering off on one side, standing on his back legs with his hooves crossed in like badass villain style, laughing at the sheep. And then he eventually saw the man and then like went back down to goat form, and then went back with the herd and just mingled with them. And so my question would be, why wouldn't you just kill the goat right then and there? Why would you just let him go back with the sheep?
Because I would be too busy scaring the shit out of myself. Like that is like I don't know. I don't know if I would ever touch that goat again.
That goat is clearly not a goat.
I guess. I don't know. I would be too scared. They can look at me and take my face or something.
And there's a lot of stories like that too, where like they realize it's a skinwalker, the skinwalker goes back to being an animal, and then they just like leave the animal alone. It's like, why? Why do you do that? Why do you see your goat from your pen standing upright laughing, and then he sees you, and then he gets all scared and goes back to goat form, and then you're just like, oh well, I guess that's my life now.
Well, like, all right. Assuming we believe that this is even a real story to begin with, and not gibberish. If I was this skinwalker,
Yeah.
I don't understand how the skinwalker feeds off fear.
Correct.
The skinwalker then, sitting there as a goat, laughing at the sheep, would then be freaked out, like, oh, I'm just a goat, la la la.
Yeah.
Instead, turn to the guy and be like, what up? And freak out the man, too, because that's more fear, right?
Yeah, no,
I don't understand why.
I agree. Like, when I read that, I was very confused, and I think if there is any truth to skinwalkers, and I'm not saying that there isn't, because I like to try and be like, I'm that guy with the poster on his wall that says I want to believe, right? Like,
That's literally on my wall in my office.
So my guess is that if there is any factual aspects of it, it's buried underneath the fantastical stories that have been told over and over again that have muddled maybe what the true powers of a skinwalker are with what people believe or wish the skinwalkers had for powers. Maybe the skinwalkers are less powerful than the stories tell, if they exist, and maybe they can only turn into animals and stuff, because there's a lot of stories like that, Jesse, where just the outcome of the story is like, I don't understand why that's the outcome. Like, why are you just being okay with it or whatever? Why would you not run to the house or just take your sickle and just be like, you know what, goat, you are good. I got great milk out of you, but it's time I'm hungry for goat meat. You gotta go.
Right? It just seems like a story that you would tell as sort of a scary story around a campfire that is inspired to create fear, but also sort of like have the mind wander. I get all of that, but I just think it's one of many of the examples of terrible bumps in the night kind of stories from all parts of society and mythos, all are different to the point where it's even the fundamental basis of what these creatures are has to change in order to keep up with the way people tell the stories.
Yeah.
So eventually you have a character